Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Debrief on ABC News Live. I'm Kimberly Brooks. Thanks so much for joining us today. A tug of war between the Navy and the president. We have the latest on the fate of a Navy SEAL accused of war crimes. Plus, more historic flooding in the tourist town of Venice. We see how the residents are coping. And we're talking to the Two Blind Brothers Company for some ways to make your dollars count on Black Friday. But first, the rest of your headlines.
A record number of voters cast ballots in Sunday's Hong Kong election. In the end, the pro-democracy group won a commanding majority of district council seats.
The fate of Australia's koala population is hanging in the balance as deadly fires continue to rage across the country. The chairman of the Australian Koala Foundation estimates that over 1,000 koalas have been killed from fires and over 80% of their habitat has been destroyed. This report coming days after this dramatic koala rescue was caught on camera. You can see the woman wrapping the injured koala in her shirt and carrying it to safety.
I knew if we didn't get him down from the tree, then he would have been up there in amongst the flames.
She was later reunited with the battered animal, which now has a long road of recovery ahead. Recent bushfires caused by prolonged drought and deforestation have caused already threatened koala numbers to decline.
Their main diet is eucalyptus. What's left is so dry that they're not getting the full nutrients.
Many are urging the Australian government to pass the Koala Protection Act that was written in 2016. And now thousands around the world have joined the cause. One hospital has raised more than 63 times their original goal of $25,000, now surpassing $1.5 million.
The bush is going to take a long time to recover, so these animals might be in our care for much, much longer.
All right, we begin with a major controversy in the Navy. Top Navy Commander Richard Spencer stepping down after a standoff with President Trump over the fate of a Navy SEAL prosecuted for war crimes. So I want to bring in Elizabeth McLaughlin. She joins us at the Pentagon. Elizabeth, I just want you to remind us who Edward Gallagher is and what his war crimes were.
Yeah, Kimberly, so I'm going to have to take you back a couple years to 2017 when Eddie Gallagher was on a deployment with his SEAL unit to Iraq. He was accused of committing a war crime, of killing an ISIS teenager who was held captive. Ultimately, when he came back to the States, he was acquitted of that charge, and instead he did face a penalty for taking a photo with that corpse. So now he fast forward to earlier this month, the president intervened in Gallagher's case and decided that his punishment, which was to have his rank reduced, his pay reduced for retirement, the president decided that that shouldn't be the case, that Eddie should have his pay increased. He should retire as what we call an E7 and have all of his benefits fully restored. Of course, that was just the beginning of what would be a very, very complicated week here at the Pentagon.
And Elizabeth, I just want to ask, do we know why the president was so staunchly defending him in the first place?
Yeah, the president's been very vocal on Gallagher's case, and he's been very smart. He and his defense attorney have appeared frequently on Fox and Friends in the morning, and the president tweets about his case, wanted to restore that and have him retire with honors. So when we get, this gets hairy here, and where you see this divide between the White House and the Navy is when the Navy decided to undergo what they call a Trident Review Board, which is essentially when they have a jury of Gallagher's peers determine whether he can retire as a Navy SEAL. And so that would have happened next month. They decided to do that on their own, and that's actually not uncommon. If you are a member of that community and you're determined to have some sort of misbehavior, if you will, maybe drug or alcohol abuse, they would undergo that review board to decide if you can still call yourself a Navy SEAL and hold that elite name with your record. So what happened is the president tweeted on Thursday and said, hey, do not undergo that review board. Gallagher needs to keep his Trident pin. He needs to be a SEAL. And then the Navy said, all right, well, we'll pause what we're doing and see if the White House will give formal guidance as to how to proceed. Now, with the big news over the weekend and what we're tracking from last night is that Defense Secretary Mark Esper has told Richard Spencer, the Secretary of the Navy, asked for his resignation over the handling of the case. But, Kimberly, it's actually not what you think here. It was not because Spencer was against the White House's decision, it was actually because he was going behind Esper's back and trying to cut a deal with the White House so that Gallagher would go through the Trident review process and still be a Navy SEAL when he retires. That's what led to that resignation. And ultimately, what will happen is Gallagher will get that Trident pin. Trump told the Defense Secretary Mark Esper he does get to retire as a Navy SEAL.
All right, lots of details there. Elizabeth McLaughlin right there at the Pentagon. Thank you so much. And for more on this conversation, I want to bring in Karen Travers at the White House because, Karen, I want you to discuss those tweets that the president did put out regarding the situation.
The president's been tweeting about this for several days now, Kimberly. As Elizabeth said, he first weighed in last week and said that the Navy was not going to take away Gallagher's pin. And then last night, after the news broke about Spencer being pushed out, the president says he wasn't pleased with the way Gallagher's trial was handled by the Navy. He says Gallagher was treated very badly. He also, though, as you see in that tweet there on the screen, the president cites budget issues at the Navy, saying large cost overruns from past administrations, as well as contracting procedures were not addressed to his satisfaction. And look at that word he uses there. He says Richard Spencer's services have been terminated by the Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper. Now, the president has said he will nominate his ambassador to Norway to be the next Secretary of the Navy. That, of course, will go through the process. But it is striking to see how public the president has been and how involved he has gotten in this case, from tweets late last week to weighing in yesterday on Spencer being pushed out. And as Elizabeth said, Eddie Gallagher and his attorneys have appeared many times on Fox News. It's certainly the way to get the president's eyes and ears, and he was paying attention.
Yeah, so Karen, while you're with us, I mean, that's going on, but we, of course, have to talk about impeachment and all of those hearings last week. Rudy Giuliani's name kept coming up. He's been laying low, but now the House Intelligence Committee has audio and video recordings of him.
Yeah, this is an incredible scoop yesterday by our colleagues, Catherine Falders, Ali Pekrin, and John Santucci. They report that the House Intelligence Committee is now in possession of audio and video recordings and photographs that were provided by Lev Parnas. He, of course, is an associate of the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. He was recently indicted, and he's been accused of campaign finance violations. These photos and recordings are said to include the president and Rudy Giuliani, but it's unclear exactly what they entail. This was given to Democrats as part of a subpoena for Parnas. They have only obtained these materials within the last week. So I think as they start poring over this, perhaps we'll get more details as to what it includes. Rudy Giuliani over the weekend said he was not concerned about potentially being the fall guy in all of this. He feels comfortable with his status with the president and says they're good friends.
All right, Karen, lots to keep up with. Thank you for the details. Karen Travers right there at the White House. We appreciate it. And guys, of course, as all of this goes down, there is a presidential election happening next year. And to get the rundown on what's going on in this 2020 race, I'm joined by our Deputy Political Director, Mary Alice Parks. It's really good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
So first up, I have to ask you, can you just remind us of how many candidates, Democratic presidential candidates, are still in this race? Because I think a lot of us have lost count.
Yeah, there are 18 Democratic candidates in this race. Still 18. Now, a lot of sitting governors and senators have already bowed out because it was just too competitive. And every month, about 10 of those candidates have qualified for the Democratic debates.
Yeah, okay, so there's two new additions. We had Deval Patrick and then former mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg. What does he add or not add to this race?
Well, as one of the richest men in the world, Mayor Bloomberg just has an unbelievable amount of spending power. I mean, last week alone, he spent $35 million on new ads. That's more than most of these candidates have in the bank. It totally eclipses their planned budgets. Well, he's focusing on Super Tuesday. He's basically skipping over these early voting states, and that could really throw Democrats for a loop because they've been focused on places like Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. They've been trying to build up ground games and campaign infrastructure, and here he has just going on the airways instead in places like California.
I have to ask you, though, when you say like $36 million worth of ads, I mean, where are all of these ads? You're just buying them up in every single state.
Right. In Super Tuesday alone, over a third, almost half, but just over a third of the delegates in this whole race are going to be decided. So it's just a massive day. From California to the East Coast, we're going to see voting across the country. And so Mayor Bloomberg's trying to bank on that. He's hoping that those first states basically end up in a bunch of chaos, not a clear winner, and he can kind of swoop in on Super Tuesday when so many voters are voting.
There has been criticism about his approach here, especially from Bernie Sanders, who's saying it feels like he's just buying the campaign.
Oh, yeah. Bernie Sanders did not mince words. He said that the idea of Mayor Bloomberg was disgusting to him. This idea that a billionaire could come in and buy his way into the election. Obviously, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders have basically been running against billionaires. Billionaire's been a dirty word in this presidential campaign for Democrats. And it really speaks to some of his political vulnerabilities here. I mean, he might have all the spending power in the world, but he has a controversial record. He's coming in super late, and those progressive candidates are going to try to run against him directly.
Yeah, and you're talking about late. I mean, this is very late. I mean, the election starts. I mean, everyone's, in the groove of it. At what point is it not worth it to join the race? Because people are still coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, Super Tuesday, where between a third and half of the delegates are going to be decided. I think anything past that is way too late for a Democrat trying to win the Democratic primary. But this is a crazy season. We're looking at a possible impeachment. We're looking at a president with really low approval. We could see an independent run still. And I don't know who that's good for. Good for the president, good for Democrats. We don't know.
Yeah. Do you think that the front runners still are going to maintain their lead with these new additions?
Hard to know. The campaigns are scrambling right now. I don't think that they're quite sure how to respond to that much money and that much spending power. And remember, Mayor Bloomberg he's kind of banking on this idea that a centrist is definitely the most electable. He was a Republican, then an independent, and finally a Democrat.
Yeah.
He thinks that there's enough voters that are kind of in that in-between space. But there's one big caveat, and he is sitting in the White House. President Trump is a big counter-argument to the idea that being in the center definitely means you win.
All right, I'm so glad you joined us. Deputy Political Director Mary Alice Parks, we need you for this.
Good to be here.
Good to see you. All right, guys, and we move to a bit of a health scare for 86-year-old Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was hospitalized over the weekend in Baltimore, and she has since been released. But to get the updates, I want to bring in our briefing room host, Devin Dwyer, who joins us outside of the Supreme Court. Devin, I just want you to tell us what happened, and I'm assuming she's okay now.
Well, we're hoping to see, Kimberly, whether she's back at the court today. In fact, there's the seasonal music hall performance here today. It's a concert that she organizes. Ruth Bader Ginsburg hosts it, and we are waiting word whether she will be back at court today. It was quite the scare over the weekend. At her age, 86, as you said, anytime a justice is taken to the hospital, it is cause for concern. This is what we know so far. On Friday night, after she was here at the court participating in conference, Justice Ginsburg was at home. She wasn't feeling well. They said, the court said she came down with a fever and chills. She went to a nearby hospital here in Washington where doctors initially evaluated her and then decided, based on her symptoms, that she should actually head up to Baltimore to Johns Hopkins Hospital. It is an excellent medical facility there. They evaluated her. We still don't know what the diagnosis is, but we do know, Kimberly, that she was treated with antibiotics. They think her symptoms have abated. And I was told that she was doing well yesterday. She was working at home here in Washington, and we wait to see whether she'll be back at court.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, Devin, a lot of decisions are happening in the court right now. What happens when one justice is out? Do they make the decisions without her, or do they wait until she returns?
Well, she hasn't missed a beat, Kimberly. In fact, just a few hours ago, the Supreme Court issued its latest packet of orders. And here's a statement from Justice Ginsburg that she wrote on Friday. So we know that she is still working from home. She's participating in the cases today. And yeah, you can participate in cases even if you aren't here at the courthouse behind me. You can read the briefs, listen to the arguments on audio recording. You can weigh in from home. So we know that she intends to do that. There are huge cases on the docket. In fact, right after the Thanksgiving holiday, the justices will hear their first gun rights case in a decade, major case. And of course, we're also waiting to see whether the justices will take up those two court cases involving President Trump's tax returns. There are subpoenas for those tax returns, an emergency request by the president's attorneys that the Supreme Court here will stay that request. So stay tuned. That could be coming any day now.
All right, Devin, we're certainly glad that she's okay, and we appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you later on the briefing room at 3:30 p.m., so it's good to see you.
Sounds great, Kimberly.
Yes. All right, guys, and we move overseas to the tourist town of Venice, Italy. The city left grappling in the aftermath of unprecedented flooding earlier this month that caused unbelievable devastation. You can see it there. And just this weekend, high tides and heavy rain flooding the city again. So our Maggie Rulli has more from Venice. Maggie?
Venice and some of its most famous landmarks submerged again as the city struggles with weeks of unprecedented and deadly flooding. The water is up above my knee line, and they're expecting St. Mark's Square to stay flooded like this for the rest of the week. Water inundating this iconic landmark, damaging homes and businesses nearby. The mayor saying it could cost more than $1 billion to repair. Reports of as many as a third of visitors canceling their trips. Locals agree something needs to be done. Hundreds taking to the streets. Many say they are fearful for their city's future.
Venice is literally drowning and the water is rising.
During the worst of the flooding, this man was swimming, suitcases floating like gondolas. Many here are blaming climate change as Venice tries to keep its businesses running. Maggie Rulli, ABC News, Venice.
All right, and to continue this conversation, I want to bring in the Italian ambassador to the U.S., Armando Riccio, who joined us in our D.C. bureau. Armando, it's good to see you. I want to ask you, what are the people in Venice doing now? Because I see that there have been some protests.
Well, they're going back to their business, back to their activities, because what is important to recall is that Venice is a very resilient city. They've been accustomed to face challenges from the water. The city has been built on the water, but this time is different. So it is important to tackle to the root causes of this phenomenon.
Yeah, and I just want to ask you about those protests. What exactly were they demanding when they were out in the street demonstrating?
There have been ideas floating for years to build special barriers at sea that carry the evocative name of Moses. This barrier should, in theory, oppose resistance to the water, to the flooding, so that the city can survive. The problem is that this system has never been tested before. This would be the first time ever worldwide that such an incredible piece of engineering is put to the service. Of course, this is a huge impact to nature, so there are those who oppose this. But what I would like to recall is that Venice has been facing floods forever. But since a few years, the rate and the pace of these floods has dramatically increased. I do remember when I was a young boy, these occur no more than once per year or 2 years. This time you have several phenomena every year, so it is important to act.
Yeah, and so you're actually helping raise funds to protect the art and history of Venice, correct?
Correct. We are partnering with a great organization, Save Venice, which is an American organization, because we do know, and I can tell being myself a native of Venice, that our city is not just an incredible city dear to my country, to the local population, but is a living testimony to the world. So it is important to preserve, protect, and pass on this incredible heritage to future generations. So we do hope that the great generosity of American friends might come to help. It is important to support Venice now more than ever.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for joining us. I'm Italian ambassador to the U.S., Armando Riccio. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kimberly, for having me.
Absolutely. All right, guys, now we move to a massive heist in Germany. Thieves making away with what could be hundreds of millions of dollars worth of jewels and art from a museum. So Ian Pannell has the latest there. Ian?
Yeah, Kimberly, details still coming through now on what looks like one of the most audacious robberies of its kind ever. Police in Dresden, Germany are reporting that there was a break-in at the historic Green Vault. This is a museum which houses one of the largest collections of treasure in Europe, in what some say is the world's oldest museum. It dates back to the 1700s. Now, German police say detectives are on the scene and investigating. We believe, even though the power was cut, that they have some kind of CCTV footage. They nor the museum will say exactly what was stolen or damaged, or indeed the value of it. But we understand that there were 3 diamond jewelry sets. Now, these are the kind of sets that will be composed of things like bracelets and necklaces and earrings, but the kind of thing that the authorities fear could be broken down into its constituent parts and then sold off. And that will put time pressure on the police to try and make some arrests as quickly as possible. Local media are reporting that the power supply was cut to the museum at 4:59 a.m. The police are saying that they had officers on the scene literally within a matter of minutes. We understand that 2 robbers entered the building through a small window into the museum. Some reports describe them as, quote, strikingly small. Bill says that they have got away with jewellery and diamonds worth millions of dollars. Now, if police confirm that value of treasure was stolen, it certainly would be one of the biggest ever heists of its kind on historic artefacts ever, and that will put pressure on the police to try and make some arrests as quickly as possible. Kimberly?
All right, Ian, thank you. That's unbelievable. And guys, the holidays are just around the corner. So to get a check on the weather and how it might impact your travel, we have our chief meteorologist, Ginger Z. Ginger?
Kimberly, it would not be a holiday week without holiday travel mess. So you know I'm going to bring that to you. If you had plans to go to Denver tonight into early tomorrow, I'd tell you you might want to delay because travel could be nearly impossible. A couple of storms that we've been watching, the one that moved through the Northeast quickly, slushy roads in Northeast Pennsylvania, but that's nothing compared to what you're about to see with the winter storm warnings. You could end up with up to 14 inches of snow in parts of Colorado. Look as it moves into the Nebraska, Iowa, into Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now that's storm 1, again, tonight into tomorrow. Reduced visibility, lower than a quarter mile because of those 35-mile-per-hour winds, which stick with the storm as it wraps up over New England. And this is Thursday. On Thanksgiving itself, here in New York City, you could see gusts up to 35. That, as a reminder, is the threshold for the Macy's Day Parade and flying those balloons. So it'll be a close one, I'm sure, a game time decision. Locally, though, we could see up to a foot in Denver proper. So that's why if you're traveling on the roads, too, Interstate 70 that crosses right through Colorado, or I-25 north-south, like Fort Collins, I wouldn't do it tonight. Then you look at those, you could see 6 inches plus as you move through that pink area. Then we have to talk about the second storm because that's just the first. So the second one drops in to Oregon, it looks like Wednesday noon, and you could end up seeing rain from San Francisco right through Los Angeles. Some of the higher amounts could be up to 2 inches, so that could cause flash flooding in some of the mountainous areas. And as that slides over, it's Thursday into early Friday, then it creates more snow on the top in the northern plains and more rain all the way down to Houston. So where do we expect some issues? If you are flying, Minneapolis, Rapid City, and Denver all could see delays, if not cancellations. Chicago or Kansas City back to Portland, even LA and Las Vegas potentially could see some disruptions, I would call it, from that second storm too. And then I thought I'd just leave you with this because you've seen the Snapchat filter with the spider on the face. Well, look what happens. That little one just wants to get it off Mom's face. Happy Monday, Kimberly.
Oh man, happy Monday, Ginger. We appreciate it. And guys, it's Thanksgiving this week, as we said, and we all know that after all the turkey and the pie comes Black Friday. Stores across the country will offer deals on the biggest shopping day of the year, but one clothing brand is doing good with their Black Friday profits. The Two Blind Brothers company is donating 100% of their proceeds to finding a cure for blindness, and they're doing it with the Shop Blind Challenge. So take a look.
When Brian and I go to the store, we oftentimes can't see the prices, the labels, the sizes. What we do is trust the people around us. So this holiday season, we're inviting you to trust us. Come to Two Blind Brothers and buy something you cannot see. No images, no description.
Absolutely incredible. So these two brothers, Bradford and Brian Manning, are here with me now. Guys.
Well, hello there.
Hello.
And thank you for having us.
Absolutely. This is amazing. Okay, so when people look at that, I just want to start with this because it says no description, no labels. You're just purchasing something without seeing it. A lot of people, you see it right there, you just pick a cart and hope for the best? What in the world?
Well, the idea is all about trust.
Yes.
Because when you're blind or you're visually impaired, like my brother and I, you have to trust the world around you. You don't, and it's the best attribute that you possibly can learn.
Yes.
And so we wanted to give our customers and the visitors to Two Blind Brothers that same chance to trust during the holiday season, because isn't that what the holidays are all about?
Absolutely, absolutely. So another quick question, just out of my curiosity, what are people getting in the box?
Well, if we told you, we'd be ruining the surprise.
It's clothing?
So we can give you a couple hints. One, whatever you get is going to be extremely giftable, extremely cozy. 3,
We are donating 100% of the profits from this challenge back to curing blindness. When Brian and I were diagnosed at the age of 5 with this condition, the doctor walked in and said, you know, go home, learn Braille because there is no cure. The whole mission of Two Blind Brothers is to change that conversation to there is hope.
Yes, it's amazing. So you guys are actually trying to raise $1 million through
Yes.
Black Friday.
That is the stretch goal, but we believe that there's the goodness in people will absolutely get us there.
I think so. So whose idea was this, by the way, for this company?
I hate to do this. I hate to do this more than
Who
anything
came
in the
up with
world.
this idea?
Shop Blind was Brad's idea, and as a younger brother, it breaks my heart to give him any credit at all.
It's literally the only thing he's ever given me credit for. You know, we originally did it because it tied so closely to our brand. You know, you would think you take out the descriptions, you take out the product details, you take out the information, who's gonna wanna shop?
Right.
We've been extraordinarily touched by the way people react to this. They view it as an experience. It's almost an insult to the team that helped us make the website originally, where we take down all their work and things start going crazy. So we've been really touched by it. We hear from families all the time. And we couldn't be more blessed to just have this platform to help these families and help the research move forward.
Absolutely. And part of this campaign is to help pair guide dogs with owners. So how does that work?
Oh, we got the experience to go visit Guide Dogs for the Blind out in California. And these animals are the single most incredible creatures on earth. They allow people who had a lot of liberty and a lot of their life taken away through visual impairment get their lives back, gain independence, gain trust in an amazing animal that's going to allow them out into society and have a wonderful, beautiful, amazing life.
So the way it works is if you want to create a Shop Blind experience for your friends or your community or your organization, you get to pick the products, you know what they are, and then you get to challenge your friends in the same way that guide dog can see what's in front of it and helps lead the way. In this circumstance, you are helping lead your friends and family to help get guide dogs in the hands of those people who need them.
This is beautiful. And you have a box down here.
We do.
So this is what it looks like. It says, not all heroes wear capes, some wear shirts. This is amazing. So this is what it looks like when you get it in the mail.
Yes,
and
that'll show up at your door.
People literally, pay the money.
Yeah.
They get a box. They have no idea what it is.
You could open it without giving too many hints.
And see what you think.
Okay.
And look at some of the stuff in there.
I can't say anything?
I mean, you can
say
do your best.
Okay.
Entice the people.
If you get this box, you are going to be so set up. You're going to be cozy. You're going to be warm. You're going to feel like you're ready for the holidays. This is amazing. It's great quality. I'm going to get a box. This is awesome. This is awesome.
If you ever want a new job, you can come help Two Blind Brothers picture us. That was amazing.
Guys, you are awesome. Bradford and Brian Manning, thank you guys so much. Such a good move for the holiday season. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks
Absolutely.
for sharing the story.
Yes. So guys, get your Blind Brothers box and continue to take care of yourselves. And if you're around, you can stick around for the briefing room at 3:30 p.m. Then check out World News Prime at 8 p.m. And if you want to stay updated on all of these headlines, you can go to abcnews.com or download the app. And I'll see you tomorrow.